Welcome to the REROLL Multiple Martial Arts podcast, where we explore the intersections between martial arts, society, and culture. I'm Elliot.
I'm Danny.
Danny, what's been on your mind? What do you want to talk about today?
Well, I was thinking about two kind of themes, topics. I feel very lucky to get a chance to kind of use this space to walk through some, topics that hopefully other people find interesting. But I know for me, just even sharing them with you kind of have helped me make sense of a lot of my own training and even my own future directions in training. But I was thinking about the sense that our topics have been very varied. And one of the first ones was looking about like trying to make sense of the martial artist or what is martial arts. And we talked about training professionally, some of the people that we kind of been close enough to see as like MMA fighters on their way. And it got me thinking about how martial arts is an awkward space because it is a space of fighting, but within that training, that combat, I guess, ideal, there's a lot of ego. So what part of the conversation that I've been kind of hoping we could eventually get to, and maybe today we could talk about, is just how does martial arts training affect the ego, the sense of self, the perception of the self, and that's one. But then also I was thinking about just the more that I've been talking to you about martial arts, the more I've been really reflecting on martial arts training and how it looked outside in real life, and some of the things I learned about that experience, some of the things that were unexpected. And I think they're somewhat related, but I just think that about the space of how the outside experience of fighting is very different than the dojo preparation.
No, I think that kind of goes together. I mean, I think definitely ego plays a huge part. I mean, it can help someone or not help somebody learn. I think we have to put aside our ego to get better. And if we train and feel like you got a big head and try to start stuff, hey man, like we never know who knows how to fight or not fight. I mean, hey, like say in Kali Eskrima, everything or Krav Maga, everything you see around you on the desk in a store can be used as a weapon or as a tool to fight. So, not having a chill ego can help save your life and not put somebody to not to embarrass oneself.
Yeah, and I think in terms of the ego in martial art, there's a couple ways that I think I can kind of like contextualize what I was thinking. That like the ego is an awkward term in general. Like someone says, "Hey, check your ego." That phrase, I know what they're referencing. Check your attitude, check your sense of esteem or lack of. But the ego, in a psychological sense, is the term that was coined to reference the self, your actual consciousness, or your aware consciousness. That's the one that I want to talk about. Not the ego of like, check out that dude puffing up the chest. That's important.
Okay.
But I was thinking about this one. Like when I started training, I was a little kid, 13. And then I also remember it, being part of that moment of the Karate Kid, 1985, like literally that fantasy world. And everyone wanted to be Daniel from the Karate Kid. And I actually had the name Daniel. So as you would imagine, I became Danielson. And that was my nickname for years in junior high. Danielson, Danielson. Well, anyway, I didn't have I didn't have a chip. I wasn't a scared kid. I wasn't a bullied kid, but I trained. And I never really understood what was going on there. But when I got older and I was a graduate student, I trained at UCR. And by older now it's like about like 20 years later, maybe 25 years later. And I'm training at UCR. I have a sensei, Sensei Otis, a part of the JKA. And one of the things that he would do is that like he would always check people in a very psychological way. He would always say things like, we can all tell that you're scared. Like you can't hide while you're on the floor. Like everyone knows what you're trying to hide, or everyone knows that you're not the person who you think you are. Things that were kind of like that. And I'm paraphrasing. He was much better in his words than I was. But I remember what he was trying to say this. You're basically naked. I can see right through your shields that you have learned to accumulate through your life. So that if you're a tough dude that happens to be working through some major childhood trauma, I can see that you're just a little kid that got bullied and now you're a 6-foot giant that picks on everybody else. That's what I mean about martial arts and the ego. Surprisingly, martial arts, I've been lucky that I've been in mostly healthy spaces. I've never been, I think I versed this before. I've only been in one setting where I could tell this was not a healthy training regimen. It reminded me of the guy from Cobra Kai, reference to Karate Kid. But that's what I was thinking about. Like, like what are your thoughts regarding martial arts and the relationship to your true self, your vulnerable self, your raw self, your transparent self?
And I really think being conscious of that sets aside, a martial artist from a athletic sports fighter. I think being mindful of yourself is super important, especially when we're doing when we're pretty much fighting with other people in respectfully in the gym. I really think that we in the United States at least, a lot of that has been lost. Whereas, or we've touched on it before, but I think the spiritual side is there's much less of a emphasis on, and we don't learn a lot of things such as meditating and breathing, which is super important in a tense situation. And I don't know. I mean, I think and we've touched on it before, where I can't wait to go back to the gym after quarantine, but I really need to build my body back up for it, and I want to focus on yoga and things like that. And I think that's part of my martial arts journey, is to build a stronger body and be more conscious of my physical self.
And I think that's probably where we kind of see if we can explore a little bit more the relationship between the body and the sense of self. Because um, I've been working with this conversation in a lot of my classes, non-martial art related, but I teach anthropology and ethnic studies. And the sense of identity, that's the word that most of my students are comfortable with. I've been really hesitant to support it because I think it's an overused term, the term identity. But what I want to tell, or what I want to connect here, is that what I've been trying to work with is when I ask them, what is identity? They tell me, well, it's yourself. And I was like, yeah, but where does it live? Does it live in your brain? Like, where is your identity, Johnny? And some of them trip and they're like, dude, this guy's whack. This is an anthropology class or an ethnic studies class. Why is he trying to get all psychology on me or spirituality on me? And I'm not. I'm just trying to get to the analysis that says, what is it that we call identity? And they say things like, well, it's me. I'm like, yes, is it the person I'm seeing, as in like the flesh? or is there someone else? And sometimes people say it's in my brain. And I'm like, okay, so are you the gray matter? Is that your identity, the gray matter, and everything else is just a shell? And eventually we get into some good talks. But one of the things I want to connect here is this. When we think about martial arts, I think it's that beautiful connection between that question of like, am I just the flesh and bones on the mat? Or am I the brain on the mat encased in bones, flesh, and like blood circulating? And the reason I say that is because as we get older, our brain still feels like all these things we've learned are there, but our bodies do not give it. So I was like, I can't kick how I used to.
Wait. Okay. So let me get this. Let me make sense of this. So, are you also talking about, say, there's a saying where race is performative. So, our identity is performative. So, in a sense, we want to be that jujitsu guy with that, with the cauliflower ear. Like, I want to be that guy, so I'm going to act like that, or what we think that guy would act like. Are you kind of talking about that type of identity, performative?
I think it can get there. I'm actually stumbling probably to that space also. But I was thinking about the sense that, like, when we think about martial arts and the ego, I question it this way. Like, I'll just be more direct in the sense that, like, when I think about like martial arts, we've been talking about, we even had an episode about like training out of fear. And I'm thinking about like, yeah, that requires a body to be able to hold our feelings, our fears, our insecurities, our trauma, and it comes out on the mat. But I was working with this idea of like, how do martial arts acknowledge that the person that you get may not just be the flesh and bones? So, for example, when you say about performative, yes, some of these people are amazing athletes. But if, as a martial art instructor, you are only training the body and don't get to the point that, like, some of these people need to be told, like, hey, slow down. I think I told you the story about one of the brown belts in my class that the sensei didn't want to promote to black belt because we all knew he was good. He was better than me. We were both brown belts. He was much better than I was, skill wise. But he was arrogant, cocky, not mean, just not someone you would want to hang out with or in the dojo for sure. And I'm thinking, did the sensei realize like I am seeing something different? I can see through the flesh and bones into the core, and you're not someone that I want to continue this relationship with. So maybe performative is, I don't know. I mean, does it resonate? Is it performance that we're talking about, or is it the sense of self within martial arts?
Now, I really like that you picked up on, your I don't know, professor or whoever who didn't want to um, grant the other student a black belt, because once, as a black belt, you're representing that gym or dojo, and that's huge. He doesn't want that his student to represent him. Is that part of it? Do you think that that's part of it?
I think so, and I think it goes to the sense of like seeing something um, more at the core of what we present. Like we perform something every day, right? We're these shells that interact with one another. Because when I say about the ego, I'm thinking maybe I shouldn't call it the ego. I should call it the sense of self, the self-aware entity that is uniquely you. Yet it's encased in a body that, like right now, for example, my ego, my sense of self is more and more insecure about my martial art abilities. I was talking to my daughter about jujitsu, and I said, "Oh, I bet you my classmates have left me. They're probably like miles ahead of me." And she's like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "Well, if we were walking, I stopped walking, and they're probably still training, so they're still walking. So when I get to see them again, they will be way ahead of me." And when I said that, I was envious, but I wasn't just envious. I think I was thinking also, what does that mean? Does that mean that when I get on the mat, I'm gonna be wrecked? And then I think about my sense of saying, like, why do you even care? Why are you comparing yourself to them? Maybe there's a sense of insecurity that, like, I think about the fact that, like, my knee hurts all the time because I've busted it from maybe martial arts or maybe playing too much when I was a kid. But I feel that, like, these thoughts can't be just my body, because I look at my body and it feels disconnected. Like if I didn't have a bad knee, I wouldn't even be thinking about my knee. So how does the body connect to the sense of self, and how does this all fit into martial arts training is what I'm kind of posing as a question.
Okay. So so everything combined in the relationships between each part. And so, yes, like so so you know, right, I injured I re-injured, I guess, uh my back a few weeks ago. And so I haven't been doing much heavy physical activity. And so yeah, I do feel weak and flabby, like soft. And but my mind, I'm thinking about martial arts and combos all the time. And but I know that my body will not be on the same pace as my mind is functioning at. And so is less responsive, and I have to build back. um my body has to catch up with my mental self. uh is this something that you're trying to talk about?
I
Or
think yeah, no, I think that's what we're kind of working through, because um I noticed that, like, when I've trained, um and maybe this talk is kind of an extension of the one that I felt that I was really clumsy expressing, training out of fear, a couple episodes back. But so we were we were rolling, and it was a brand new white belt, and he was about my age. So that means that, like, in jiu-jitsu you get these young men and women that are in their 20s, and they're amazing. Their bodies are just like at 100. And then sometimes you get people that are over 40. Their bodies are at like 60 or 70. And sometimes you get even like 60-year-olds training for the first time in jiu-jitsu, and their bodies are at like 60 maybe, or 50, in the sense that, like, if we think about like maximum. But that's not really the issue, because their body is like kind of like given. It's like knowing that if you have a bug, a vida bug, you know how much it can do, in a racetrack. So that's not, you're not surprised when it can't, reach 200 miles an hour. But what I found interesting with this one particular person is that I got to see how scared he was. And I don't know if it's fair, but I'm just being very honest. Like, the reason I know he was scared is that, like, at one point he literally told someone, like, I don't want to get hurt. And that's what I mean. Like, I don't want to get hurt. But that sense of I don't want to get hurt, I was thinking about, like, one, how honest he was. Like, that takes a lot of, I don't know. I was gonna say strength and bravery, but maybe not. Just most people don't say, "Hey, I don't want to train. I don't want to get in there and spar with you because I don't want to get hurt. I'm scared." But we're all scared, and I think that goes back to what you said right now about performing. Like, some of these people, they never say that, but they're all scared. Or how can you not be scared? Like, one is like, are you not scared because you're so young that you can't even think that you're going to injure your body in a way that will be permanent? Because when you are like over 40, when I get hurt, I always know that's forever. Like, I never recovered back, surprisingly. So, like, when I pop an ankle, I know I'm going to walk again, but I'm never going to walk the same ever. So everything feels permanent. But anyway, I was thinking about what would happen. Like, he wouldn't spar with us. He wouldn't train hard. At one point, he would stop and just get up and leave. And I was like, and I was annoying a lot of people, but I was thinking like, there's something more going on there. Was this trauma from the past, you know, or was he just so hyper self aware about the fact that he's like, I don't want to have a long lasting injury, and this is not where I'm going to get hurt, which is cool. And that goes back to what I'm saying at the very beginning is like, how do you get to the point of acknowledging that when you address issues of martial art training, you are not just engaging with the body, but you are engaging with the consciousness, the self awareness.
So it kind of reminds me of, say, Anderson Silva's last fight at the UFC, where he was not the same Anderson Silva that I had, thought about, so many times. I have to think about, okay, he's older now, his body is different. How is he changing his technique and his game in this situation? And I never usually see him as the aggressor, and twice he was being aggressive, and his opponent found an opportunity to hurt him. And so, I think, from what I'm gathering, what you're talking about, I mean, yeah, Anderson Silva's the body and the mind and all that stuff. So his opponent's is competing against a legendary, really good mental game, but but he is not in peak physical shape. So, is this similar to what you're trying to get at here in this episode?
Well, I was thinking about just that, competing against, these different types of elements, and when I think about martial arts, I realize that martial arts are exterior to some degree. The skill sets have to be displayed. But I think about this analogy of like, is are we our bodies, or are we encased in a body? And if I am the body, then when my body gets older and it can no longer do what I used to be able to do, then I am going to feel sad and incomplete and vulnerable because I am defined by what my body can do. If I am something encased in a body, then I can separate myself and know that at certain points I'm still the same person as a conscious being. However, I exist in a body that can no longer do the things it did in the past.
So I like the latter. I think the latter is healthier. I think latter is less prone to feeling sad or sorry for themselves. I think the former, people who identify with their bodies a little bit, who have really strong attachments to the body, think of like a lot of like movie stars and celebrities who have made money off of how they look, and so I think it's really yeah. I think we have to learn to separate our self from our body, and after doing that, I think that's much more freeing. I mean, even a simple thing like having longer hair and having that attachment to that hair. Mentally, I know that I grew my hair out because it's not forever, and I'm acknowledging this um, finite thing that I have. Like this is not forever. My hair. I'm going to get older and lose it, and I accept that. I'm saying that right now, and I think um, I, I like how you put that, because this it's like this I don't know, martial arts philosophy that not a lot of people talk about, but not in the same way or framing it the same way as you kind of said it.
Yeah, and maybe that's probably the one that I was thinking about. Like why was I even asking this question or topic? And I think it has to do with my sense of understanding what martial arts has offered me and reflecting on the different people that I have been through different stages, so that like I have a memory of myself as a 13-year-old kid, and I am not that person anymore. But I think the part that is difficult also is to consider where we are, like when I said about like reflecting upon my classmates and where they are, because I'm pretty sure some of them are still training um, during this quarantine and just getting better and better. And it's a really messed up comparison if you always go to the gym and you see everyone that's better than you. That's a really not the way to train, because the romantic or even the ideal training is that you should only compare yourself to yourself. Are you a better practitioner today than you were from yesterday? But even that messes you up, because what if you're degrading? What if you broke your leg? You are not better now than you were yesterday.
I am definitely worse than I was a year ago. Totally. But I will accept it and accept the current condition that I am in, because I can't control it. So I cannot stress over something, a situation like an injury that I have right now. Dude, I've had so many injuries this past year. Seriously, 2020 gave me a lot of injuries. And even if I wanted to train, I wouldn't be able to. So I think, man, not going to say a blessing and a curse, because a pandemic is not a blessing. But I think it's good for me to take a step back. I mean, yeah, dude, I I have a lot of acquaintances who are training right now. I see them, they're posting stuff or they competed, and I'm like, dang, dude. Yeah, and but I have to, compare to myself, because I mean, a lot of these people, some of these people say are younger guys who are in their early 20s who live by themselves, and so I guess their bubble would, I guess, be the gym and the gym mates, but still, everybody has their own approach to it. But stay home, seriously. Um, so yeah, I think having that healthy relationship with my body, and knowing that my body doesn't necessarily represent myself, it's a good thing to keep in mind. And I never said that before. D. This is I've never said that sentence in my life.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what I was just thinking. Maybe it has to do with where I'm at. I'm like really going through this hard trip on self reflection, but not in a positive way. I think like I feel like frustrated because I've been really thinking about um, the sense of loss of progress. I used to um, I used to keep log. I think I don't know if I ever showed it to you, but I had a log of my training routines, and it would allow me to know what when I trained, how long I trained, what I learned, and even my sparring sessions, if I did good or I did bad. And it was this really good note taking process that allowed me to feel optimistic, so that I could say I'm at 100, training sessions this year, or even less, but it was always something cool. And then in the past 6 months, um, longer actually now, it's been less, so 0, and then you think about this perspective like, well, what am I losing that will never come back? And that's what I mean about the sense of about the ego, because I was like, who is asking that? Like it can't be I'm saying it's this inner self-aware entity that was really excited at what the body could do. And it reminds me of this question, like, well, am I living just in the body? And as another analogy, it would be like me driving a car, right? So that like if the car runs out of gas and I'm stuck to the car, I won't get out, and start walking. But if the car just can't move anymore, and I leave it, maybe I can go some other direction. And that's what I was thinking about, the sense of like the ego. I was like, what is the relationship between the ego and martial arts? Because for a lot of us, I think we have spent so much time feeling really good about ourselves. Even when we weren't good in the gym, I felt good that I went, because I was like, I am better today than I was yesterday. And now that I'm not, going at all, I think it's really messing with my sense of self a little bit.
So how do you think we can, feel how do we feel better? I mean, I think it's a process. I mean, I get it. I think that's part of like um our journey. I think it is part of the martial arts journey. There are times where there are injuries or we can't train, and man, I felt that a lot. I can only imagine of like professional athletes who have gotten really heavy injuries that they can't train like they would or pursue their passions. I mean, that's really hard. I mean, um, so but from here, how do you think we can help ourselves feel better about ourselves?
I don't know. I was thinking about this awkward as I was hearing you. I was thinking about a contradiction that at least I feel I've identified is that in order for us to be like really, really good, like top 10%, I think we invest everything into what we can perform. Right? I mean, like that's what drives you waking up at 4:30 in the morning and not having your favorite breakfast and cutting off all these things because you become what you can do. I mean, that is your definition of who you're going to be, gets you there. But at the same time, if that's what you do, you will lose perspective that that's not all that you are. So I don't know. I think that's like the balance, maybe. And it's a little bit of a contradiction in my sense right now because I was like, I've been jealous of all the people. And I'm going to repeat it honestly. I've been jealous, envious of those hyper committed people that reached levels that I could have reached. Not necessarily to their degree, but like I could have gotten at 90% of where they could have if I could have done what they did, but I didn't. So I don't know. I don't know what we do. I feel that the Hallmark card that I would write is like, hey, balance, right? But no, it's not balance. I think it's because balance doesn't get you where a lot of us want to go. Like be the best.
With that said, this has been the REROLL Multiple Martial Arts podcast, where we discuss the intersections between martial arts, society, and culture. Until next time. Boop.